School is the most important thing in your life. And while I hate school, I got a PhD. And I hate school. I hate everything about it. So somebody say, E, if you hate school so much, why you get a PhD? Because I hate school, but I love options. You can have average skill, but you can't have average will. You can't have average will. Like your will has to be phenomenal. You have to see basketball as the gateway. It's like a passport. Basketball is just your way to get in, and then once you get in, boom, then you dominate. So I'm telling you, you're not taking a test because they're giving you the test. You're taking a test that's about to change your life, your mama's life. And I know if you take the test serious, you'll kill it. When you go through your go-through, your siblings are watching you. When you go through your go-through, your friends are watching you. When you go through your go-through, your parents are watching you. And people will use your strength to get through their stuff.
What up? What up? What up? It's your boy E.T. Hey, super excited. Look, if you're in a classroom today, man, you're one of the luckiest people in the world, you know, blessed. Why? Because you have an opportunity to mold minds, you know, shape our country's future. Like, that's what's crazy about teaching. Like, we legitimately are on the front line, you know, making an impact every single day. And I say every day because even if you don't work on the weekend, what you do during the week still impacting those kids, you know. So salute to you, thank you. And again, you know what we're here for. We do one of three things. Today hopefully we'll get to all three, but we're here to inspire you. You know, we know you need fuel, you need that gas, you need that energy, right? We also know you need support. You need somebody to have your back, you know. I just know when I taught, man, that was my thing. Like, especially the female teachers, I just wanted them to know, like, yo, I got your back. If I need to come in your classroom and shut it down, I have no problems coming in and shutting it down. And then finally, you know, we need new information. You know, we all need to learn. You know, learning. I was told in college that we are lifelong learners. That is not something we do for a year, 2 years, we get a degree. We do it forever, right? So I'm super excited to go to Katie to explain to us today what our topic is. Talk to me, Katie.
Yeah, so we're in a series about SEL right now. I'm going to throw out the definition for us again, just make sure we're all on the same
Okay.
page. So
Yeah.
social emotional learning, three things: helping students of all ages be able to better comprehend their emotions, be able
Yeah.
to express their emotions fully,
Yeah.
and also demonstrate empathy for others. That one's my
Yeah.
favorite. So those three things encompassing SEL. And last week we talked a lot about academics and taking care of our kids mentally and how that fits in.
Yes.
And we're going to
Yes.
talk emotions today. So how do we
Yeah.
take care of our students emotionally and meet them where they are?
My favorite topic, emotions. I second that emotion. You know what I'm saying? I just, I'm an emotional guy.
Yeah.
I want to stop real quick and, based on what I'm learning from Katie, I want to give you guys a little definition. I'm sure you already know what EQ is, but I want to start with IQ because I think when we talked about the mental, for years in the school system, that has been the way we've quantified, that's how we measure, kids' intellect. And I think in the school systems now, or just in America's education system, we're expanding that, right? We're broadening that. And we've kind of moved away from just looking at IQ, right? And now we're exploring, what's the impact of EQ and how can we help kids who have IQ and EQ or EQ be just as successful in this society, based on how we were doing it in the past. So, Coach B, if you can put that definition up for me. So again, like I said, IQ is a score determined by one's performance on a standardized intelligence test, right? Not bad, not good. It is what it is. But uh, years of research shows that there's another side of us, right? And there are those of us, who probably relate more to the EQ, and that's the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships uh, judiciously and empathetically. And for me, I'm just going to be honest with y'all, um, I feel like, my EQ has always been, out of the roof, right? I felt like as a kid, when it comes to my emotions and relationships, like, I get nervous now because I'm like, man, if I lose my phone, I'm in trouble. You know what I'm saying? I've got, NFL, owners, coaches, players, NBA, you know, um, CEOs, actors, I just got a lot of, new people in media, agents. I got a lot of individuals in my phone, and I laugh sometimes because I think it's like super common, and people are like, "No, that's not super common," but that's just it comes. Relationships come naturally for me, and since I've had the assessment, the flight assessment, and for those of you who know Extreme Teachers, we share that same tool that really helps people to see. And there are two groups, flight attendant and grounds crew, that are naturally, expressive emotionally, right? So we're going to just kind of explore that today. Thanks, B. I'll get started. And, I think when I think about just the emotional piece, I think about two things: how I experience school, and I don't think a lot of teachers cared about what my experience was, but it's hard to go somewhere 180 days that you don't like. That's kind of
Right.
tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. Maybe a weekend you gotta go somewhere to like a conference or something you don't really want to. You could probably make it happen over Saturday, Sunday, but 180 days.
Hmm.
And so I want us to, as teachers, just to think about not just the lesson plan or
Hmm.
what our academic goals are, right? But how does one feel when they show up in your classroom?
Yes.
Like just when they walk through the doors,
Hmm.
like not necessarily the school, but your room specifically. Like, is it warm and fuzzy? Is it cold? Is it static? Is it progressive? Is it one dimensional where you like doing all the teaching and they just sitting? I want you to think about the experience. Like, what is the experience like? And then I want you to think about what emotions are invoked throughout, that block, that if I'm with you for 45, an hour and 15, and that's the one thing I love about the movie theater, and I'm just being honest. I like movies, but I've come to realize during COVID that I think I like the movie experience. Like, I like I used to think I just like movies. I don't. I really don't. I like the Dolby surround sound. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like the boom boom. Like, you ever been in a movie theater? Like, one side you hear one thing, the other side you hear something that's like
Yeah.
the Matrix. I'm like, oh, I'm up in
Yeah.
this thing. The lights going down. The
Hmm.
popcorn. I do the Coke slushy. You know what I'm saying? The nacho chips with the jalapeno. Like, it's a full rich experience. You can go back out. Some people do. I don't. I don't go get popcorn after I get started. I can't miss any of the movie, right? I gotta stand there. And so when I think about the movie theater, it's like every time I go in, it's a pleasant experience. And I must be honest, there were those teachers who understood that and did a great job. But the majority of my teachers, I don't really think they cared about the experience that we were having and how I felt. When you called me up there and you knew I couldn't really read like that, and you knew in terms of the enunciation of words, like that wasn't my strength, but yet you still called me up on a regular basis and you could tell I was messing up, but you didn't put like that negative feeling I had about learning because I felt more embarrassed than I did anything else, or you called me out. I just, yeah, those two things, the experience and the emotions that are associated with school. And I have to be honest and say, I don't know that the school really studied that science.
No.
And so I ended up dropping out when I was 16 because when I left home and I didn't have to go to school there and I was legally old enough to leave, there was nothing about the experience
Didn't
or
want to.
emotionally how I felt that made me want to get
Right.
up homeless and go to school.
Mm. Wow.
And I'm not saying there weren't good teachers. I'm just saying as a whole, we were
Hmm.
so focused on standardized tests, and GPA, that my emotional man you know, those needs weren't necessarily met. Sam, talk to me. I know, yeah, I know you take your students, you know, like you went to the experience, you're taking them to Costa Rica and they're getting a lot of stuff outside of just the classroom. So for you, either personally or as a teacher, how important is the EQ?
Yes. Oh, that really just when you said that, it just made me have a whole bunch of flashbacks.
Mhm.
Just about that experience and how the moments really do matter, and the
Yeah,
moments that you
yeah,
curate as a teacher really do matter. And it also just made me think, E, when you were talking about that, just like as you as a student, how as a teacher are you in tune with that? You know, like how are you checking in with your
yeah,
students to see how
yeah,
they're feeling? How are you
yeah.
surveying them? What are those relationships so that you, or how are you reflecting on a weekly basis to be able to even gauge that? Because we know that, you know, a whole bunch of things are piled on us, but if we're not in tune with the experience that our students are having, then, you know, who are we serving? What are we doing every day? So
Yeah,
I
that's
do. I
good.
think, you know, the Costa Rica experience has taught me a lot about that. Just because looking at, you know, being able to set goals with students that, you know, goals that matter to them, and being able to help curate every single step along the way alongside with them to obtain like a really large goal, and having their voices really involved in that. I think that's taught me a lot. But I think, you know, just as I was listening to you, I was like, oh man, like sometimes as a teacher, we really do get lost in that. And how do we have those checkpoints so that we can
That's
really
good.
be
That's
connecting
good.
to be
Yeah.
in touch with that?
That's good. Checkpoints. Yeah, that's good. Yep. Talk to me, Auntie Val. What comes to your mind from the teacher's perspective, or either from you being a student yourself?
One of the things I often think about is Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Hmm.
And we come with the curriculum ready, but it's
Mhm.
oh, we keep saying it all the time, meet them where they are. But if
Mhm.
I really don't know where you are, it's like me trying to pick you up to go somewhere, but I don't know where
Yeah,
you are. So
yeah,
I
Yeah.
can't pick
yeah.
you up.
That's big. Yeah,
Right.
that's
So you
big.
have to really meet your kids where they are, but you have to hit those needs first. So you can't come in, turn the page, turn the page, turn the page. We're gonna learn this. You have to meet them where they are, and they have needs. It could be food. I kept food in my room. I
Yep.
kept deodorant in my room. I
Mhm.
kept belts. I did all of those things that made them. They knew we had sections in the room they could just go in and shop if
Mhm.
they were hungry. I had kids that were court mandated to be in my class, and they had to. They didn't want to be there already. They were already they came in forced. You didn't even have to figure it out. You got papers from the courts that saying they need to be here on time.
Right.
So one of the things we do with extreme teachers, we take the DISC assessment and we show what we call flight assessment. We
Yeah,
take that assessment, but we show you how to look at a student and
yeah,
get to their strengths.
absolutely.
You know, like what we call the kid that talk a lot, that want they're communication specialists.
Yeah,
We can't see that as a negative. And that
Mhm.
kids that's really dominant, how about their control specialists? So when you're
yeah,
talking to their parents, you show that's their strength. It's really their superpower.
yeah,
But the way you present it is going to make it a difference. And then you're teaching them how to use their superpower. So now I know
Yeah.
what you're good at. Now, as E would say, I got to teach you how to govern it.
yeah,
You have to learn how to govern it. And then you have your harmonizing specialists. You know, you have your information specialists. They need the details. But what you have to do is figure out their superpowers and then help them soar. Because
absolutely.
if you don't get to the basics of who they are and you just try to tack on fifth grade, that's weight.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like you're lifting them to them. It becomes weight and they can't carry that weight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
with their emotional intelligence, guess what's going to happen? They're going to respond emotionally because you haven't figured out who they are and where they are before you tack on the next grade. So
yeah,
figure that out, and then you can lift them as high as you want. I,
absolutely.
I
Yeah,
Yeah.
promise you can lift them, but you got to know
absolutely.
who they are. And as
Yeah.
administrators, your staff needs that lifting just like your students need that lifting.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
You
good.
have to
That's
figure out
good.
who they are.
Hmm.
You
Yeah,
know, you
But
that's
teach
like,
them
good.
in.
but Larry,
Come on, yeah.
there was a meme going around the other day, and it was like,
What?
it said, "Shout out to all the adults now who used to get
Yes.
it." Like talk too much on their report card.
Yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
don't make me pull it up. My
Yeah.
second grade report
Mine
card.
too, always.
My teacher put on she talks excessively, right? And she made me think something was wrong with me. But at the
Podcast.
same time, right? But I get to travel the world and speak to educators now.
Yeah.
But she told me I
Yeah.
talk too much. But she didn't make me realize that was my superpower. She made me
Yeah.
feel like it was my kryptonite.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's
Yeah.
that first thing for me is just meet them where they are and see their needs.
Yeah.
Find
Yeah.
out where they are, then find out their needs before you try to move them somewhere else.
Yeah, that's good. And you know what, Katie, I want you to go, but I also want you to think about, like, maybe we need to create a you talked about checkpoints, Sam. Maybe we need to create something where, because a lot of people may not be emotional, you know, so it will be difficult for them to do emotional checkpoints because that's not their strength. Like, to Val's point, my wife, you know, is a control expert, you know, and she's an informational expert. But when you look at her assessment, she's probably got like a 7, I think, emotionally. So she's not necessarily not trying to disregard emotional people. It's
Right.
not a strength of hers.
Yeah.
And so I've had to, as a person who scored 100 on it, okay, I can now give her checkpoints, or I can give her characteristics, qualities, or traits of somebody who is very high emotionally, and she can mimic them. Maybe not operate in the same level that I can, the same strength, but she can at least have an awareness, understand what it means, and manipulate it to the best of her ability. So, Katie, I would love for us to create that, and then maybe on one of our episodes we go through it and, you know, and provide it for them. But your experience, Katie, with this EQ.
Yeah. Yeah. I know there's some teachers listening that are feeling like overwhelmed already, right? We're so overwhelmed as teachers all the time. And so I know, there's that thought of like, I didn't sign up for all of that. Like, I'm not supposed to be the counselor and the food provider and all these things. And I know, and I get it, right? We all get it for sure. I think sometimes I know a lot of schools right now have like SEL curriculums like that they've adopted that school that teachers are actually following. But aside from that, I just want to say, like, we don't have to overcomplicate it. Like, we just have to care about our students and make sure that they know we care about them. And so I love the checkpoints. Like, I'm all about, like, I love doing a reading inventory and like, where are kids? What are their levels? What are they interested in? So I think that's fabulous and we should totally do it. But I also think that for those teachers that are feeling overwhelmed, it's okay to say, like, just simplify it and just get to know your students and help them get to know you. And that's okay. We can simplify it that much. So, and we can do that at every grade level, and we can do it with kids that aren't talkers too, right? So I'm thinking of, because it's easier to get to know the kids that are talkers.
They tell us everything, right?
They tell us all the things. We love those kids because they're telling us all the things and we get to know them. But some of them aren't that way, and that's okay. So I'm thinking of when I taught first grade, I had a little girl who was so quiet. She just didn't talk much. And you can still help to make sure those kids, you see them, like they feel like you see them, right?
Yeah. Oh,
So
yes.
I knew that she had a cat. And so when I would do like my writer's workshop lessons every day, I would model writing for them, and I have a cat, Pete the cat. Those of you that know the children's book, I have a real Pete the cat at my house. So I would, like, as I'm writing that, I would mention it to her. Oh, you like your cat? Does your cat ever do that? And she might just do like a head nod, but she wouldn't. She didn't want to
good.
talk.
Wow.
And for Christmas, she brought me Christmas gift, and it was she had asked her parents to take her to like the pottery places, and she made me a dish that said Pete the cat on it that she had painted for my cat's food dish. And it was a little girl that she barely talked to me, but she listened and she knew we both had a cat and this was the
Absolutely. I love it.
Went to the pottery place and made me a cat dish.
I love it.
This is when I taught first grade years ago. And last year, her family called and invited me to her graduation open house from high school.
Let's go. Let's go,
So,
Katie.
kids don't forget when you care about them. And it can be the talkative kid or the quiet kid. But when they know you see them and you care about them, it can be that simple,
I love it.
Katie said something that was powerful. She didn't say just get to know your kids. She said let your kids get to know you as well. And sometimes as adults, we don't tell our kids about our mistakes. Or we stand in front of the classroom, we have all the answers because we're the teacher. So we don't tell them when we made mistakes. So mistakes are allowed. So they feel like it's okay to try different things in the classroom because they get stuck that they have to be right. So I can't just raise my hand. I can't just be who I am. So you have a kid that's silent, that's sitting in the class because everybody else is talking, but she felt connected because Katie shared a part of her.
Yeah, just
and that's, I think, as
recognizing, you know, it doesn't
educators,
have
that's
to be-
important.
Yeah, a lot. Just those little tidbits that they find out about you, you're a real human person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
And
goes a long way.
I think one thing just to add really quickly, you made such a great point, Katie. And you know, teachers were all different, right? Like you said, we all learn different, we communicate differently, all of that. And I do think that for some teachers, like Katie in your example, you might be able to remember tidbits about your students here and there once they share. And some of us might need to jot some things down, right? Like whip out your phone, like, oh, this student talked about this today, or this student is going to this festival this weekend. Like, let me make sure I follow up next week. Those little things really do matter. And as an adult, you know, having administrators and leaders, like, you know, I remember just little questions and that I was like, oh, you remember that I said that? Or like, I feel seen. And so those little moments matter. And it's okay if you have to like go write something down if you can't remember those or whatnot, but they do matter for sure.
Yeah. And I like that. Again, let's simplify it. You talked about caring and I see you, and you just have to say that.
Yeah.
Like, don't overcomplicate. Just say it. Like when you start your class, like it was so funny. We did the conference, the 120 conference in Atlanta, and I got feedback, and people were saying, "Man, I was so grateful you talked about when you first started that you love us and you care about us." And they just typed it, grown people. You know, they was like, yo, I was looking in the mirror before I came downstairs, and you know, my confidence was low in myself, you know, and it was like, yo, you talked about, yo, if you have low self-esteem, this is why you have it, but just know you're at a place where we're not going to be upselling you. Like, it's not like that. Like, we're not going to be buy this product and buy this product. No, we're here for you. We love you. We care, you know. And I'm saying to our administrators, yo, do that. Like when you see your teachers, just say, man, thank you. You came to class, you came to work today. Because as administrators, we know, yeah, we pay you to come to work, but you also get vacation, you get sick time, and when you go home, I feel it. Like when my teachers aren't there, I feel it. When I got to bring a substitute teacher and 3-4 substitute, that just throw my whole, like, it's throw everything off. Like I was an assistant to the principal, so I was at an elementary school, so it wasn't an assistant principal. They called me a lead teacher. But my principal, she had a bad gallstone, I think you call it, and so she would be gone a lot. She just kept having it. I don't know why, but she'd have to have surgery or whatever. And so I had to run, like I'm 33, running the whole school. And so when I had subs, it was like, man, it's crazy. Or I had a teacher that was sick, or I had a teacher who would come in late because they had other responsibilities. Like, yo, that threw my whole day off. So when teachers come to work, thank you. I see you. I care. And you know, CJ did something that was like, he had never done it before. But I heard a lot of adults say, man, thank you for telling us in the beginning how we should prepare ourselves for this class. You know, they were like, yo, the conference. She was like, look, don't look for confirmation. This is a conference where look for one correction, and they were coming to me going, yo, I'm glad you said that, because I would have been looking for but I did need to change some things. And then everybody was saying, what's the 3 things you're going to walk away? What's the action? And so I'm telling you, administrators, don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions that they know. You know they know if you say something. If you open your mouth and say, I care, thank you for coming today. Thank you for coming to work. I see you. I see what you do in your classroom. I see the adjustments you make. I see the change you make. And I'm just being real. I hustle. I grind. I work hard. I forget sometimes to stop and acknowledge the things that have changed or the good stuff that's going on. And let's just be honest, a lot of us, we give way more attention to the negative than we do the positive. Way more
4 to
Come
1.
on.
4 to
yeah,
1.
4 to
Remember?
1. We gotta stop, y'all. 4 to 1. Let's get back
Yeah,
to
you know,
all right.
we have to.
Now we told you guys we were going to start bringing in some phenomenal teachers, some phenomenal administrators, right? We promise you that so we can get these different perspectives. We have one today. All right, we have one today for you. I got a special treat for you coming up. All right, I saw some stuff on TV and I was like, Katie, let's do our research. Let's reach out. All right, let's see if we can talk to these amazing teachers. But we have a phenomenal administrator today. I'm gonna get out of the way. Auntie Val has a little bit more information, a little bit more insight on this individual than me. So Val, take it away.
So this guy, he's down there in the midst of the hurricanes. He's in the
Wow.
midst of everything that's going on, right?
Wow.
So I'm gonna tell you about him before he comes up. So he is the 2022 Louisiana Principal of the Year, right?
Already.
Okay.
Already.
I
He's
know.
forecasting. Yes, already. All
I
right.
love it.
All right.
I love it.
He doesn't tell his story, y'all. And I hope he shares it today.
Okay.
From he took over a school where I believe they only had 2 certified teachers in the entire school.
Wow.
So no one was in their lane. No one.
Mm.
So talking about meeting the kids' needs, and you talking about subbing, no one was certified to teach what they were teaching, right?
Wow.
And in the midst of all of that, I want to make sure I get it right. Bruh lost his hearing.
Wow.
Wow.
Lost his hearing. You are an administrator.
Right.
Right. And then in the midst of all of that, so all this happened before. He was just doing his job. He don't even really care for the light. He doesn't care for the light, but he cares for the grind. You know, he's not there for the shine. So he does that. And he's out there doing what he needs to do. But I hope he tells all this story as much as he can get in, because we only on for 45. So y'all, I present to y'all Principal Ronnie Harvey Jr. Hey, Ronnie.
What's up, doctor? What's
Hey,
up?
everybody, how y'all doing today?
Good to
I
meet
know
you.
you
Good to
wasn't
meet you,
gonna
my
tell him.
brother.
Hey, first of all, let me just say it is a pleasure to be here. I am a fan. I'm telling you, I was starstruck this weekend at 120, man.
He volunteered,
I understand how people
wow.
felt when they used to listen to Michael Jackson at his concerts and pass out. Because I was just like, man, that's ET. Like, oh my God, that's ET. Like I told Val on my flight back from Atlanta, man, all I thought about was the experience. So, man, hats off to you, your team. Listen, I'm a different person because of you, and I can get to that later, man. But I just want to tip my hat to you, man. Like, you are an awesome individual, man. A blessing, not in disguise, man. A blessing to so many people across the world like myself, man. So from the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate you, man.
Thank you. Talk to us, man. I was like, Valari, we told the people we're gonna bring them to celebrities, to superstar teachers, and you were one of the first people she chose, and she said you got a phenomenal story. So we're gonna ask you a couple questions in a minute. But you hear what we're talking about, man. Talk to the educators out there, tell them your story, and make the connection so that they can understand it doesn't matter, the resources you have, if you're resourceful, and you're ready to get those results. So talk to us.
Well, first, I agree with everybody on the panel on what they said before. The social emotional learning, we have to care about people. One thing that I constantly tell my staff, and that's something that we constantly talk about around here, we got to stop expecting people where they not and meeting them where they are. A lot of times we have these high expectations for people, but we realize we got to learn how to get there, and I'm not just talking about the students. We got to focus on the educators too, because so many times we put the emphasis on students, and don't get me wrong, that's why we're here. But what about the people who actually lead students? If they're not in the right frame of mind, or their mindset is not where it needs to be, you're going to struggle. So, and sometimes I get in trouble for this, but I have to tell myself, hey, let's push these assessments to the side. Let's not talk about testing. I have to treat all my staff, everybody, all stakeholders. Let me know about you. So what I tell myself when I walk into the building each and every morning, everybody have a bubble over their head. It's like on the cartoon. When everybody have a bubble, and I want to know what's going on with Sam. I want to know what's going on with Katie. I want to know what's going on in Val's life. Is your spouse okay? Are your kids okay? Let me remember that birthday. Maybe I need to remember the day they lost their mom or their father, because if they experience death on that particular day, you got to brace yourself. We're going to be proactive versus reactive. And I need to be extra caring that day, because you're not going to be able to reach the student the way that we need you to be if you're focused on something outside. So we have to come in each and every day and focus on the well-being of people, not so much the assessments, the testing, the data. Hey, listen, there's variables that's not measured every day, and that's how people feel. And sometimes we forget about that. We come in and we focus on benchmarks and we focus on testing and assessments. Sometimes, how are you doing today? Are you hungry today? You know, did you sleep well last night? You know, those are the things. And that's why here at my school, at Washington Marion Magnet High School, we always talk about shifting the climate and culture, but we try to empower our community at the same time. Sometimes we only try to focus on what's going on inside the school building. But what about outside the school building? You know, if there's shootings and violence and drugs and, you know, abuse going on in my community, then that's going to have a direct correlation to the behavior that's happening inside my building. So a lot of times I try to tell people, we have to teach behavior. We have to teach social emotional skills, because if you teach those skills, I guarantee you, when a challenge comes along or a conflict comes along, not only for that kid, but for that adult as well, you know, they're going to be able to face adversity a little bit different.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Good. Any questions, guys? I got a billion, but I don't want to hog the mic.
Tell us about your so how did you handle with your hearing and then caring about everybody else, but you were going through what you went through?
So let's go back to this. October 7, 2008. I was actually a teacher here at Washington Marion, and I was awakened to sudden sensory neural bilateral hearing loss. Okay. For those of you who may not know what that is, that's like when you wake up and it sounds like this. Everybody's talking. You know, ET could be screaming on the camera, what up, what up, what up? I see his lips, but I don't hear what's coming out. So it started off as a teacher. You know, they offered me medical retirement. At that time, I was 26 years old.
Wow.
And I'm not retired, you know. Wow. And the crazy part, me being naive, show you how God works in a mysterious way. My bachelor's degree is in speech pathology and audiology. I actually studied this. Didn't even go and work in my field, but I realized maybe I majored in this so I could deal with the issues I'm going to have later. So who would have ever thought that I would deal with hearing loss? So when I'm going to audiologist appointments, I'm actually listening. I'm saying listening, but he's writing down what he's telling me because I can't hear him. But I'm speaking the lingo with him because I'm like, Doc, I know what you're talking about. I understand the audiogram. I understand the depth that I just lost. But I had to stay positive. This is so off the record, and I don't want to veer off too much, but you're not going to believe this, man. But your TGIMs, what people don't realize, man, you had the caption at the bottom of your videos.
Yes.
Man, listen, you don't realize how you can bring people from the depths, man, because everyone else is hearing you, but I'm reading you.
Wow.
And my wife can tell you, man, like the caption at the bottom is everything.
Wow.
But let's go back to the story real quick. So I was just a teacher at that point, but I aspired to be greater. I knew that the calling for me was better. I love my community. I love the kids. And I wasn't going to let anything stop me. Funny story. I told the doctor, I say, hey, man, just give me 2 hearing aids. I got to go back to work tomorrow. He's like, man, I don't think you understand what's going on. You know, he's writing this now. Your life has changed forever. Anyone who's ever experienced hearing loss, it is a medical emergency. It doesn't just come back because you take a prescription and it's back in the morning. It's not take 2 of these and call me in the morning and it's back. No, it's not like that. It takes time. So what happened, I had to go back and reevaluate my why. Bonnie, why are you in education? Why are you doing this? It was never about me. So I had to tell myself, no matter what happens to you, it's about your servant leader. You're for everybody else. It's not about you. So don't be selfish and stop because something of this caliber happened to you. What are you going to do to still impact children's lives? So make a long story short, I went through treatments, wore hearing aids, continued to study and perfect my craft. Got certified to be an administrator, became an assistant principal at 31 years old, became a principal at 32.
Yes.
Life is going good. Hearing aids are working for me now. It did not completely restore. So I'm positioning myself to always have my back against the wall. I became an excellent lip reader. And I also just had to focus on one person at a time. You know,
I like that.
I like that. Better because now I'm giving my individual attention to the people.
Yeah, that's good.
So positioning myself, but here it goes again. I'm speaking to my staff right before Christmas break, and all of a sudden I hear shh. I'm thinking the moisture didn't set in my hearing aids or something like that. I experienced hearing loss again.
Wow.
Okay, so now we going into Christmas break. Everybody happy, you know, Christmas present, the love, the family, and I'm not hearing again. Hearing aids can't help me anymore. By the grace of God, I had to make a decision, and a sound decision, because at that point I had 6-month-old twins. Beautiful family. My wife had just birthed twins. So I'm like, okay, hold on. Now, Ronnie, you really can't be selfish. Now you making all these sacrifices. What about your babies? So I made a decision to get a cochlear implant. Okay. Anyone who knows about a cochlear implant is what they cut the auditory nerve and bypass and go directly to your cochlear. Okay.
Wow.
Now they have what they call a rock star implementation. Some people naturally only hear maybe 10% of the time out the cochlear implants. It takes a lot of therapy, a lot of training, because you lose it. It's not like you lose your ability to walk and you start taking one step, two step. We talk about hearing again. Okay. Fast forward, cochlear implant surgery, a success. Implementation, I get there, and the audiologist is actually speaking to my wife, and she was like, you know, man, Mr. Ronnie's he's a great guy. I just hope he doesn't be disappointed, because he's probably only going to hear weird beeps and noises, kind of like chipmunk style, for about 2 years. Show you how my faith is bigger than my fear. I was like, what do you mean I'm only going to hear weird beeps and noises? Not a dry eye in the room. What she didn't realize, she accidentally turned the activation on, and my hearing was better than I ever had it before. I love music. I love music. I listen to music. I listen to ET all day. So you gotta understand, I'm not saying this because I'm starstruck, man. I'm saying this because, can you imagine, you know, from going to hearing like the what up, what up, what up?
Right.
Really looking at the screen and it's like,
wow.
You know what I'm saying? And then it came out. So then show you, I was like, okay, it's go time. It's really go time. I got my hearing back. I'm motivated. Let's go. So I actually, you know, with the hearing battle, I stepped into my first principalship at 31. And you know, it was a phenomenal experience. So we go from that to my second principalship, where I am here now at Washington Marion Magnet High School. And upon being appointed to Washington Marion Magnet High School, the school had been labeled as a persistently struggling school. And let me just say this, along with the previous administration, current administration, I think everyone just jumped on board and done a phenomenal job of just getting the students where they need to be. We went from being labeled as a persistently struggling school into a B-rated school, which in school performance score, SPS, you know, that's pretty good, you know, for a quick change, a turnaround in about a year's time. So again, I tip my hat. This has not a lot to do with me. This is about the team. I always say that, you know, I'm surrounded by great people. You know, I just get an opportunity to be appointed as their leader, but my team is just phenomenal. And, you know, I will say this, I think the motivation is more intrinsic, you know, from the things that happen with my hearing. The self-motivation comes from within, you know, from being able to go from a point where you're not just existing and you're not just surviving, but you're literally thriving in your career, and being able to do this with a cochlear implant, you know. So those are just one of the experiences that we went through. But let me also say this, and I know Ms. Val asked this question and she stated this earlier, but we in Calcasieu Parish in Lake Charles, Louisiana, went through not only one, but two hurricanes within, 50 days. Two hurricanes Laura and Delta, completely devastated our area. And what did that do to our education system? Not only we're dealing with the global pandemic, but now we're dealing with two hurricanes in a short amount of time. So, you know, we just try to use all those things to come together. I try to use my story to let it be a blessing to somebody else, so they can be motivated from the things that I went through, and be transparent along the way. You know, like, we're still recovering from the hurricanes. I'm still recovering from hearing loss. But at the end of the day, we still got to continue doing what's best for children. And that's being there for them from a social emotional aspect, but just making sure that we're growing them in all facts.
Funny, CJ, on the podcast, CJ was just talking about what makes, you know, military experts is they plan, but then they plan also for the plan that goes awry. Like, they don't plan for just the plan. They plan for things to go wrong. You feel me?
Yeah.
And so, you know, for us, what happens is we have a plan, and when that plan don't go right, we get emotionally involved in it, and now all of a sudden we've changed our energy, you know. And what we heard today is like, hey, things change, you know, but the goal doesn't change. The mission doesn't change. Teaching students is the mission, but sometimes the way we go about it is going to have to switch up. You know, we may have We may have to put the lesson plan down. There are times I've had to put the lesson plan down and show a movie that was going to get the same lesson across, or I had to bring in a visitor and let them tell their story to get kids to go, oh, I get it. Or I had to bring in a parent or parents, or I had to, righteous indignation, just stop and show kids like, oh, you live in America. This is an opportunity. And maybe you don't understand that it's an opportunity, and so, but the point we want to get across is, along with academics, there is this emotional thing going on at the exact same time. And we have to find the balance, and we have to find a way to meet both, because you can't be emotionally taken care of, but you can't do your schoolwork. Like, you come to go to school. At the end of the day, you have to learn how to read and write and comprehend and count, and critically think. And like, you got to learn how to do all of that. And so we're not saying one over the other. We're saying both and. We're not saying either or. We're not telling you to pick academics, pick emotion. We're saying both and. Both are critical. Both are necessary. So as we close out, Val, give us something. Sam, give us something. Katie, give us our parting words.
I know I said it's not about you, but you matter.
Yeah.
You matter because it helps make them matter.
Yeah.
So I know when you walk in, you have to remember that it's not about you, but throughout the year, you have to remember that you do matter. As the teacher. Like he said, when you're not there, it impacts a lot.
A lot of people.
It impacts a lot. So it's about them and it's about you. But together we can succeed. We can.
Love it. Yeah. Sam?
I love how Principal Harvey just was, when he was sharing his story, he talked about the bubbles, right, on the top of people's heads. And I think that imagery is just sticking with me of how important it is to remember in the midst of all the madness and all the things that are going on, that everybody has that bubble on the top of their head. Yeah. And you as a leader and as a person, it's really important for you to be connected to what's going on in that bubble of each person and trying your best, even when you have your own bubble of things that are going on, and being open to sharing, but also connecting with other people on a daily basis is important to work together as a team.
I love that. And thinking about the bubbles over students' head too. He was talking about staff, but it made me think about students too. Yeah. I want to just leave you with a tangible to make the simple connection. And I'm sure lots of teachers do this already. I actually learned this from Capturing Kids' Hearts training, but that greeting at the door, it changes everything for students and staff. So principals should listen to this one too. But that greeting at the door. So standing at the door when kids come in. So I'm not at my desk, like working on lesson plans as they're walking in the door, but I'm at the door greeting them, even if the other stuff isn't done, because this is most important. And then it's a routine. They expect it. So I always did with my little ones, I did high five, handshake, or a hug. So whatever they're comfortable with, when they come in, they wait in line. Everybody knows when they are walking in, Mrs. Davis gets high five, handshake, or a hug. My big kids, I made them handshake because I think it's a life skill they need to know. But on the way out, we do like high five or fist pump on the way out. So just that simple connection, and be yourself too. Like, it doesn't have to be, my high schoolers are always like, Davis, nobody high fives. And I'm like, what? I high five? It's cool, right? And they're like, no, you are not cool. But you know what? They all high fived me on the way out, and then they would like laugh at me, and I'm good with it, right? Because we had a connection.
We connected. Yeah.
Right.
So just that simple, tangible, make sure you see them and you connect on the way in, the way out can be that simple.
Yeah. And I'd say, man, Principal Harvey said it. Be creative, in what you do. He mentioned it. I speak, but we did the closed caption. Like, we put the words at the bottom. Like, we weren't just thinking about the people who could hear, right? We were thinking about everybody. So when you're in your class, be creative. Don't just think about the students that you automatically connect with, right? Yeah. That your natural gift connects with, but think about those that don't naturally connect with you, and just ask yourself, what can we do? And we were like, yo, we could put, you know what I'm saying, we could close caption this boy. We can, you know what I'm saying, actually put the words that I'm saying and they can feel the energy, you know, because body language is not, you know, audible. You know what I'm saying? Body language, you know, is what you feel and what you sense. So the words, and then you can put that together. And I love the fact that he said, you know, he can start concentrating on one. You know, yes, we have many, but let's give everybody their attention. And I'm trying to practice lip syncing is hard, but I'm trying to practice it in Spanish. So I'm like, yo, E, if you could read lips, it will be easier for you, you know? And it's like, okay, that's what I'm practicing. When I watch, you know, Telemundo, I'm watching the lips, you know? And so it's like, yep, that's deep that he said that because I realized that's another way to learn. So I'm not saying lip sync, I'm just saying in general, come out of your box as a teacher, do what you do naturally, but add something small that can make another student feel comfortable and feel welcome, feel connected, and emotionally get attached with learning. All right, it's time to go to Coach B's office. Coach B, let's go.
It's that time again. It is that time again to go back to the office. You already know what we do. We recap and we review the most impactful points from today's broadcast. So let me share my screen here because we had a lot of phenomenal content on today's episode. And E really started us off by saying, look, it's hard to go somewhere for 180 days. That's a long time. 180 days, it's tough to go somewhere for that long if you don't like it. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, how often do we really think about how can we make these kids feel amazing when they come into our classroom? How can we create a phenomenal experience? Because remember, the instruction is only one aspect of the classroom experience. How's your environment set up? What's the overall energy in the room like? Asking ourselves these types of questions, it automatically makes us more conscious of the experience that we're providing these students. And creating a complete experience is really how we can make them want to come to school. It's how we get them present, not just there. Right? Now, the second thing that I got from today's episode was that we need to speak to students' strengths. And we're talking about emotional needs today. Well, different students have different emotional needs. And you heard Auntie Val talk about it. Some of your kids need control. Some of your kids need information. Some of them need interaction with others. And some of them need harmony and stability. But if you don't know who your students are, it's going to be challenging to serve their needs. So what we first have to do is recognize and discover what their gifts or superpowers are. That's step number one. Before we can help them develop them or utilize those gifts and superpowers, they have to discover what they are. And here's a great case in point. Auntie Val mentioned it. This is her actual report card from back when she was in grade school. And look, it's underlined right here. It says, Valari is very talkative in class. Says it right there in plain English. So her gift has always been there, but her teacher used to see that as a negative. But we want you to be that extreme teacher who recognizes it as a superpower and helps turn kids like that into the Auntie Val that you see today. And to do that, you have to speak to their strengths. Now, the last thing that I got from today was care. And Katie dropped an absolute bar when she said this: just care about your students and make sure that they know you care. And I promise you, you could be the best instructor that's ever lived. You could have the most technical knowledge, maybe the highest IQ of anybody in your school. But if the kids don't think that you care about them and their lives, they will not learn. So write down the things that they tell you about their lives. Have questions of the day. However you do it, no matter how you do it, just learn about your kids and show them. Don't just tell them, but show them that you care. And their achievement will skyrocket because they're going to want to work hard for you. Now, as always, if you're interested in the Extreme Teachers team coming to your school for professional development, just email us at info@extremeteachers.com and visit our website to learn more about becoming a certified Extreme Teacher. Take advantage of our free weekly PDs. Check out all of our other products and services that can help you take your school to the next level. Plus, don't forget to use the link below in the description to nominate a teacher to be highlighted on the podcast. And speaking of nominating teachers, this next individual was nominated by one of our certified Extreme Teachers. So this is kind of like ET saying that somebody's good at speaking. Like this nomination is coming from high places, right? So certified Extreme Teacher Shannon Herder had this to say about Josie Harris. She said that Josie is our LEA, and she took this leadership role straight out of college because it was her or no one. She stepped up and rocked this role better than anyone and is making the best connections and relationships with teachers, parents, and staff around our community. She deserves to be seen for all of her hard work that goes unnoticed by most. She works with kids that others look past or just don't want to put the time in to help. She never stops loving and seeing all of her students as an opportunity to create greatness. So big shout out to Josie Harris out of Auburndale, Florida, and shout out to certified extreme teacher Shannon Herder for making that nomination. We appreciate both of y'all's hard work. Now, as we bring this episode to a close, I was at the 120 conference. You guys see the jacket. I was at the 120 conference back in Atlanta this weekend, and I was talking to Carl for a little bit. And a lot of you have probably heard of Carl. He's one of the founding fathers of ETA, along with ET and CJ. And we were talking about how phenomenal the event was, how amazing the venue was, how big the event turned out to be. And Carl said something that kind of struck me. He said, when we started this whole thing 15 years ago, we would have never believed that this is how things were going to happen. We would have never believed that this is what was going to take place 15 years later. And he said a word that's really important, and that's believed. You see, to be an extreme teacher, you got to believe some pretty crazy stuff. You have to believe that you can make a significant impact on each and every student, no matter what they may have been through in the past. You have to believe that you going above and beyond to serve and plant those seeds, that it's actually going to make a difference, that it will pay off, that it will all be worth it, and that you can change those kids' lives. But most of all, you have to believe in you. You have to believe that you really are an extreme teacher who can impact beyond the walls of your classroom. You have to believe that you are amazing at what you do, and you have to believe that you can, and you will, and you must make a difference in those kids' lives. So keep on believing, keep on being extreme on purpose, and keep on tuning in to the Extreme Teachers Video Podcast. And we'll see you on the next one.